All right, so we are looking at how do we analyze A or B and C. In order of operations is we got to do B and C first. So my recommendation is you make a separate column in between, and that's where you put B and C. And if you forget what they mean, you know, just type that and or write that and instead, and then we'll analyze that. If you're doing this on paper, so let's do this on paper also. Here's the way I'd recommend setting it up. So we need to make a table that has a way to keep track of whether A is true or false, a way to keep track of whether B is true or false, and a way to keep track of whether C is true or false. And with just 2 of them, it's pretty easy. With 3 of them, it's a little bit trickier. A has 2 options, true or false. B has 2 options, true or false. C has 2 options, true or false. So that's going to give me 8 options altogether. So my table is going to have 8 rows. So that means each of them are going to have to be true 4 times and false 4 times. So one way to make that happen is for A, just go true 4 times in a row. And then go false 4 times in a row. 2, 3, 4. Once you do that, now you can't do the same with B because then you've repeated yourself. So with B, you do it 2 times in a row over and over again. So you would go true, true, false, false, true, true, false, false. To add on C, you would just strictly alternate true then false. True, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. And now I have 3 unique rows. Nowhere else will I see false, false, false. Nowhere else will I see false, then true, then false. So I've now made it unique. So 4 at a time, 2 at a time, 1 at a time. That gives you all possibilities with 3 things. Now, ultimately, I want to know what's going on with A or B and C. Just double check what the problem said. A or B and C. Yeah, so I'm using the words instead of the symbols there. And because this is complicated, I'm inserting a new row in between where I can figure out, well, let's first figure out what B and C is, and then we can do the 3 of them together. And then I remember, okay, so for and, the only time it's true is if they're both true. So B and C, the only time they're true is in line 1 here. Is that the only time? Oh, no, there's another time down here. B and C on my 5th line are also true. Otherwise, there's a false in there, and so they got to be false. So now I'm ready to tackle A or the B and C. So now I only care about the first column and the 4th column I introduced there. And some people are good at thinking this all at once by looking at those 3 things. And I am on some days, but I make more mistakes if I don't throw in that extra step. So an or is true as long as there's 1 or more trues. The only time it's false is if they're both false. So I'm going to do the easy one and just say, are there any place they're both false? At the bottom, 1, 2, 3 times it happens. Otherwise, there's trues there and a true there. Yeah, so it looks like down here, the last 3 have 2 falses. Otherwise, there's at least 1 true hanging out. So the first 5 are true. So this would be the result of a truth table for 3 statements where we connect them with an and, then an or. And the parentheses mean the order of operations matter. And in logic, parentheses help us be really strict about the order of operations, but in regular language, it ain't so. In the intro video, I gave an example, so I just want to repeat it, slightly different than this one, where somebody tells me to go to the store and they say something like, get beans and rice or avocados. And if they just say that to me and I don't really hear any pauses in their language, I'm not sure. Let's just call these B and R or A. I'm not sure if they meant get beans and rice. If you don't get beans and rice, get avocados, right? Or did they mean get beans and get rice or avocados? Where means I'm definitely getting beans, but I might get rice, but I might get avocados. Those are two different statements, right? So in regular language, we're kind of sloppy. And to make up for that sloppiness, we throw in commas to kind of group things, where in logic, we use parentheses. So if I were to write it down on paper for my daughter to go to the store and get the right stuff, personally, I like beans and rice together. So I would have said beans and rice, comma, or avocados, which would match this statement right here. If I wanted to match that one, I would have said beans, oops, I'm just gonna call it beans, and comma, and rice or avocados. And then that would be this one right here. So when we speak, unless we put the pauses in and somebody picks up those pauses, they might not get that. Logic tries to make it a little more, no, they meant this one, not that one, by using parentheses. So definitely keep track of those parentheses.